Throughout the nation's history, more than 41 million Americans have served in the military. This causes an unthinkable number of experiences that haven't been shared, although most people understand the bravery, strength, and faith a veteran has. A possible branch to show these attributes is the Army, which is the branch a veteran known as Shawn Bender enlisted in. E4 Shawn Bender served as a multinational force and observer in the 101st Airborne Division. Born on June 15, 1976 in Lebanon, Pennsylvania to Elsie and Kenneth Bender. Along with his only sibling, Keith Bender, Shawn Bender's mother, Elsie Bender, worked as a waitress, and his father, Kenneth Bender, worked in manufacturing. During his prime, Shawn Bender attended Lebanon School District. At 16, he began working his first job at Pizza Hut. After graduating from high school, instead of attending college, Shawn Bender enlisted in the Army. However, this was not a shock to his family. They were even happy when he told them. His father had served in the Army prior to Mr. Bender's enlistment, but his reasoning was not to follow his father's footsteps.
I had a friend that was joining, and I knew college wasn't my path, so we just decided to join the military.
After Bender decided to enlist with his friend, he attended basic training at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. During basic training, he was taught how to march wherever he went and was able to push through physical training. The physical training he endured including push-ups, flutter kicks, 2-mile runs, and more discipline. One major training Bender attended during his service was Air Assault School. This course tested the strength and abilities of Mr. Bender as a soldier. This is shown in the course because if a soldier does not have their rope correctly wrapped around their harness, they have a possibility of falling to their death. Due to this, the beginning of the training frightened Bender, but once he began, it became thrilling. He had to jump off a 40-foot tower, rappel out of a helicopter, and partake in fast roping. The helicopters he remembered jumping out of were UH-60 Black Hawks. However, Bender's fear of heights did not stop him from completing his training. Due to only being attached to the rope with his hands and feet, injuries were easily possible to acquire even if everything is secure. Others Bender trained with sprained or broke their ankle, injured their backs, or even broke a leg just by jumping out of these helicopters. At first, Mr. Bender wasn't sure he would be able to push through the difficulties of the training. However, in January of 1995, Shawn Bender graduated Air Assault School and gained his Air Assault wings. The true reason Bender was involved in Air Assault School was due to being a part of the 101st Airborne Division.
101st Airborne Division, it's a division in the Army, it's the Screaming Eagles. They're accredited for a lot of wartime activities. They always get deployed. Very prestigious division in the military.
As Mr. Bender explained, the 101st Airborne Division has been included in combat with World War II paratroopers all the way to deploying soldiers in Afghanistan. In March 1982, some 101st Airborne Division soldiers had a 6-month maneuver to the Sinai Peninsula and joined the multinational force and observers. This joining allowed Shawn Bender to be a part of that multinational force and observers group. Although Air Assault School was a big part of his training, Shawn Bender also attended Army Basic Marksmanship training. In this training, he was able to become familiar with many different weapons.
I used, like I said, the M16, the M4. I shot the M60 machine gun. That was my primary weapon. I was a machine gunner. We shot M203 grenade launchers. We shot AT4 missile launchers. So it was actually very fun to do that.
After his completion of this training, Bender was titled an expert in shooting. Although with all of this training Mr. Bender endured, he was able to make friends with other individuals who were also in the Army. As I said before, he joined the military with one of his friends, and he also knew college was not the road he wanted to take. Even though Bender joined with his friend, they weren't exactly able to see each other as much as one would believe.
We were in the same place. We were both at Fort Benning, Georgia. I happened to be in Bravo Company, and he happened to be in Charlie Company. But yes, we were at the same place. We got to see each other, but not, we couldn't hang out. Not during basic training. A lot of real strict rules on what you can do, what you can't do, where you can go. So, we were in different companies, but yes, we were at the same area.
Along with hanging out with some friends he created relationships with during service, Mr. Bender was able to keep in touch with family.
Oh, we just called them on the phone. Like I said, back then it was the pay phones where you had to put a quarter in and, call that or either write letters. Like when I was over in Egypt, I'd write a lot of letters, but you could use it. They had phones there you can use, but you had to time it when you knew people were awake because it was, I think, an 8-hour difference over there from here. So
Even though he didn't make friends with people in other countries, Mr. Bender was able to see the individuals from him serving in the Multinational Force and Observers, or otherwise known as the MFO. During his time in the MFO, Bender went through certain kinds of training, but the reason Shawn Bender was ordered this mission was because they needed more troops. Because of this need, his orders were changed 2 weeks before he graduated from basic training. During Mr. Bender's time in the MFO, he worked partaking in guard duty and observation posts. The observation posts were a constant rotation they needed to fulfill. On these posts, there were multiple people who had to purify their own water, cook their own food, and pull their own guard duty. This training allowed them to gain more skills needed for safety in the possible future. With all this training, Mr. Bender was able to witness an interesting event that happened during his service.
I think I was in a year and a half, 2 years in the service, and every morning you woke up and you did PT, physical training. So we would run, our crew would always run no less than 3 miles a day. That's what it was. You can't run less than that. So we were out running the one morning, and it was, you could see it getting darker and darker, and being in Tennessee, there's a lot of tornadoes in Tennessee. So our team was running, and it was me, another guy named Valdez, and another guy was Cuevas. And he was a smaller guy, real skinny, real short, and you could see it was like a tornado was coming. It was, oh my gosh, it got so windy, and next thing you know, it's like you could hardly run. And he might have weighed, I don't know, 100 pounds soaking wet. And it actually, the wind picked up so bad, we grabbed both of his hands. He was literally like a flag floating in the wind while we were running to try to get in the building.
From participating in all of these experiences, Shawn Bender was able to earn different medals and a higher rank. Mr. Bender completed college courses for extra points and portrayed himself as a good team leader. This allowed him to rise to an E4 rank. Bender also gained the Expert Infantryman badge for completing 32 to 34 different stations that tested his abilities. He also earned the Expert Rifleman's badge, which was earned from throwing grenades a certain distance of meters between the 15 meters that were given. Finally, as talked about before, he gained his Air Assault wings from graduating Air Assault School. After Mr. Bender experienced all this, on October 19, 1997, he was discharged. When he gained this news in Tennessee, he decided to drive 12 hours back to his home in Pennsylvania. Once he returned, Bender began adjusting back to civilian life. This change seemed to be easy for him. Instead of going to college, he went straight into the workforce by picking up a job at Alcoa, an aluminum factory. After he began working there, on October 21, 2000, Shawn Bender married Jacqueline Klinger. After their marriage, Bender switched jobs to M&M Mars, while Jacqueline worked as a teacher in Twin Valley and later switched to Elko. 3 years after their marriage, they had their first child, Zachary, on March 30, 2003. Their second child, Carissa, who was born on November 1, 2004. Their third and last child, Sierra, who was born on August 27, 2008. Now, looking back on his entire service, Shawn Bender doesn't regret anything he chose to do.
I do not, because if you wish you changed something, I guess you don't know what it would be afterwards or how you would have ended up. I got a wonderful family now. If I stayed in, would I have had that family? I don't know. So no, I'm fine where I'm at.
In conclusion, when an individual takes time to learn about a veteran, they can understand how exciting or even horrific the veteran's life has been. Shawn Bender was able to share his story even though many veterans cannot. During his service, Mr. Bender portrayed good leadership and faithfulness. Remembering the good times and the bad, E4 Shawn Bender served as a multinational force and observer in the 101st Airborne Division. Thank you, Mr. Bender, for your service.